When everything is going bad for you, do something good for someone else.
Basketball player with a big afro came up and I typed in like the name Mocha Choco and he's laughing so hard.
Yeah, I must have run insanely hot because I for sure had no idea what I was doing.
Back with another episode, this time with the boss himself, JACKSTACK is with me. How are you doing?
Pretty good. I'm excited about this. Like we've been kind of like planning on doing this for like a few weeks now. So I'm excited. I'm like, I don't know what you're gonna ask me. So you've been already kind of like hinting it's gonna be some deep questions or I don't know. So we'll see. I'm excited.
Not that deep questions, but yeah,
No Alan Watts kind of.
no all of us this time. No all of us this time. Yeah. All right, let's start with the one that I asked to everyone. How did you get into poker?
Into poker? I'll go back like I would say until like maybe like 12 years old or something like that. Um, One of my cousins actually taught me how to play Texas Hold'em. Like we were on, I remember like exactly where we were. I don't know why. Because I think it's because he reminded me over and over again. We were on we were on the bed of my grandma's apartment, like on her bed, and we were sitting like with the cousins. We were just playing, and he was like, "Okay, this is Texas Hold'em. You get two cards. There's a burn card, this and that." Um, so we just started playing, and like I was just like at that time I was like, "Yeah, whatever," you know. And then my brother started playing a lot of poker too, and then we started playing like within our friends. We started playing a lot of like just random home games where it's like $20 buy-in, like tournaments. We would play just tournaments, like seven or eight of us, $20 buy-in, and the winner, you know, would like top one, two, or three gets paid. And like I remember, like I was like always excited, you know. I was like, wow, this is cool, you know. Like I like this game. Something about this game is just exciting to me. I kind of just fell in love with it, you know, right away. And like that was like the highlight of my week where I was just like, I can't wait to, you know, meet up with these guys and play poker. And then and then eventually we stopped playing, which kind of sucked. But then I worked at, you know, a restaurant called TGIF Fridays. I don't know if you guys do you guys have that in
No.
where you're from? It's just like it's just like a restaurant chain like Applebee's or I don't know if anyone you know is familiar with those, but it's just a restaurant chain. So I started working there, and there was a couple of guys that played poker recreationally, and um, so we just got together and we started playing again. And I was like, shit, like I missed this game. Like why did I ever stop playing? So we started playing again, and like I was doing really well, and like everything was just going good. I was just like winning all the time, and like I just felt good. It just felt right. And then after a while, my friends were like, we weren't playing as much anymore. We would play like two or three nights a week, like after work, and then we weren't playing as much anymore. And I asked them, I was like, "What's going on, guys?" And they were like, "Oh, we're playing online." I was like, "Huh? What's that? Online?" I was curious, but then I was just like, "Online? Like it's got to be rigged. It's got to be scammed." And like, I was like, I can't trust that thing, you know? And they were like, dude, just put on $50. It's so much fun. You can play all night. You don't even need people to be there with you. Like you can play any time of the day, this and that. So I was like, all right, I guess I'll throw on, you know, $50 and see what happens. Like if it's rigged, I'll lose $50. It won't be, you know, it won't be a big deal. So that's basically how I started. And then like I eventually just got, you know, making the long story short, I just eventually got um, to the point where I was making more money playing online poker than I was working at my restaurant job. And then from there, like the dream was just alive for me. I was just like, I have to quit. I got to give this a go. And yeah, and I gave it a go. And it was very, you know, it was very rocky from there. I can tell you more about that, but I don't know if like, if you have, if you have like a lot of questions, I don't want to get too deep in that because it could be like just a long dialogue about what happened after that. Like, but
Next
it's
question
up to
is
you.
actually three most exciting moments from your poker career. I guess that kind of like
Okay.
in
The
line.
first one is going to be like coming in a second here. So I moved to, shortly after I decided to play online poker, um, I moved to Florida because I always liked it there. Like, and me and my cousin wanted to move there, and it was just like I don't know, it was warm there. Like we wanted to live in South Florida, so we moved there, and Um, I stopped playing poker for a little while. I don't know why. I can't even remember exactly why. I want to say I was like 21 at this point, something like that, 22. I stopped playing for a little while. I started partying a lot. And then the first exciting moment came when I started playing again. I remember it was December. I don't remember which year it was, but I remember it was December. I remember it like it was yesterday. The month, not the year. I don't remember the year. I want to say I was like 22 or something at the time. But I started playing. I started playing like the first game I started playing was six max sit and goes, like six max and nine max sit and goes. I was playing that on Ultimate Bet. Then I decided to play MTTs just out of the blue. I don't know, like in December, this one December, I was like, I'm just gonna play MTTs. Like it just feels right. Let me do that. And I had three scores in that month, and like I think it was like in 1 week where I made 16K. And at that time, that was like it was so much money, like so much money for me. Like I was just like I couldn't believe I couldn't sleep at night because I was so excited just thinking about like how much money I can make playing poker, like playing these MTTs and like I didn't understand variance at that time. So I was like, wait a second. I started doing calculations in my head. Like I went to bed and I'm just like, if I make 16K per week, like for a whole year, I'll be so rich. Like I was thinking like a total fish, and I was just like, this could happen. Like I won these MTT. It seemed so easy because everything was running my way. It was like the poker gods were like shining down on me because I wasn't a good player back then. I was just like playing just purely based on intuition. Like I didn't have any like serious poker skill or anything. I was just like intuitively just playing and I just like yeah, I just made that money. I remember being like that was probably like one of the most exciting times I can think of like as far as with poker, and I
Like
was
a
so excited.
like a
What was
begin
that?
like a beginner's luck to get really hooked.
Yeah, yeah. It was like everything was working for me. Like the world was working for me, and like everything was so easy. I got it in maybe like nines versus sevens and an aces versus ace queen, but I didn't realize I was, coolering people at that time. I was like, oh, I'm just so good. Like I can't lose. Like I'm just like I'm crushing everyone. And so that's how I was feeling at that time. And then I think like the next month or two, like I lost like 5,000, and then like I was like, oh, this is brutal. So I was like losing, and like I had terrible bankroll management. Um, I let poker negatively affect my life in every which way. Where like if I had a losing day, I would tell my friends like I'm not hanging out, I'm not going anywhere. Like no matter what was happening, like I didn't want to step out of the house when I had a losing day. I didn't want to talk to people, and that went on for a while until like I want to, I decided to change that after I had like some really painful moments where I lost my entire bankroll in like one day, like numerous different times. But we're going to a different path there. You
Yeah,
said three exciting things, right?
pretty
So I
exciting.
said one. Second most exciting thing, I would say when I first bought my car. When I first bought my car, it's a car I still drive today. Funny enough, so it's just a Nissan Altima 2006. But when I bought it, it was like I want to say it was like 12 years ago, 10, 11, 12 years ago when I first bought it. It was like my dream car and I wanted it. And I put big rims on it. I put a sound system. Like I just like decked it all out, and it was like that's what I wanted at that time. The car doesn't have any of that stuff anymore, but it was like at that time, like that was a huge big deal to me. Like I was looking forward to that so much. And so I think that would be a second one that comes to mind, like just off the bat. Like if I would think long about these things, I might pull out something different. But third one, I guess when I moved to Prague with my ex-girlfriend without ever having moved or even vacationed to Europe. Like I decided to make a move to Prague with her before I ever even saw Europe, before I even have traveled out of America or Canada. So that was a really exciting time for me to like move to Prague, and we were both kind of like because she was from Spain and I'm from Queens, New York, and living in Canada. So we both were very unfamiliar with Prague, but we just decided to move there like on a excitement kind of
How did you came up
spontaneous.
with Prague?
Well, it was like it's close to Spain. It's somewhat close to Spain, so we decided, and she could work there. So it was like the logistics were good and the time zone wasn't terrible. I was like, all right, like, and I heard from Prague, like a few different poker players. They're like, oh yeah, Prague's really cool. So like, all right, let's just try it out. And it ended up being like one of the funnest experiences, of my life for sure. Because we discovered like we just went out and walked around. Just like there's something about being in a new city and just walking around and just like seeing things and like going to different restaurants and bars and just walking and like just seeing how people live in Prague as compared to how they live here in Toronto or New York. It's like the way of life is so different. It's so much slower and everyone's more, it seems, present and less about the hustle and the money making mindset of like these major cities in North America like New York City. And like so over there it was just like we would go on like a random breakfast place and the people are just sitting there for hours, just like reading a newspaper, having a coffee, relaxing. In New York, they're just like, they get in the cafes, they're like, go, 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 like grab your coffee and go because you got somewhere to be. But over there, it was just like, let's all relax, let's have a fun time, let's have a relaxing time, let's enjoy life. And for me, like that's exactly what I needed at that time in my life, because I hadn't really been exposed to that kind of life before. So I really enjoyed it a lot, and I would have stayed there longer. But she wanted to come back to Toronto at that time, like because she had a lot of friends here. So it was like an interesting experience for us because we didn't know anybody there. It was just me and her, and that was only like a few months after we even started, dating. So it was like a really fast. It was really fast, and like it was exciting because we didn't know anybody. We were just discovering things, and like I met a poker player out there, which is kind of fun, and like yeah. So that's probably the three most exciting that come to mind right now.
So, you consider to ever come back to Europe?
Yeah, yeah, I might like because for now I really like Toronto because Jason and Rudy live out here, and like we have a bunch of other 651ers that live here. It's like a good like home base for me. But my visa is expiring, I think, in November, and if I'm not able to renew it, I'm gonna have to go somewhere. So. I think Europe would probably be at the top of my list. I don't know where exactly, but I'd probably go somewhere to Europe if I'm not able to renew. Yeah. So definitely possible.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, I didn't know that you lived in Prague. That's new to me.
Yeah,
as
yeah,
well.
for a couple of years. Yeah.
All right. Since you are one of the most successful players I know,
hmm
I have to ask, what are the three pillars you would say to be a successful poker player?
Three pillars. Number one pillar, for sure, in my opinion, is to make poker your number one priority in life. And this is not going to sit well with a lot of people when I say something like that, because that mean when I say number one priority, I mean like above family, above friends, above going out, above even like health to a certain extent. Like it becomes your number one. Like everything else is behind poker. For me, like that's the way I made it, to where I am right now. Is I went, as all in as you can humanly go, where I purposefully decided to like cut out my social life, to cut out all these things. And like, you can argue that these are like unhealthy things to do. And I would agree, I would agree with that. But I think in order to really climb and be the best possible, you have to really put all your energy and your resources into that. And like, for me, like I was okay doing that for a few years to completely unbalance my life and obsessively jump into poker. And then bring that balance back after I was in the position that I wanted to be in. So that's number one for me is to make it your number one priority. I think a lot of people will say that, poker is their number one priority, but when you look at their everyday schedule or their actions, it's different. For me, I was just playing 16 hours a day. I was just eating, playing poker, studying poker, talking poker, and then sleeping. And I did that for many years. So it was just really important for me. So that's the number one pillar for anybody watching that's like And that's only if you're willing to do that. If you're watching and you're willing to do that, some people might be like, dude, I don't want to go through that 3, 4 years, 5 years of like, because it's lonely. It's lonely. There's a lot of anxiety. There's even depression in there because like you're just like you're just cutting off, you're just chopping off all these other aspects of your life and you're just going all in, you know. But it's a surefire way of being great for sure, 100%. Second pillar I would say is to be really, really successful about something. I think you have to find something that piques your interest or your curiosity at some point. So being curious, I think, is the second one. I would say, like, being very curious when you're learning, because there's passive learning and then there's very curious learning when you're looking at a you know, a lucid GTO kind of sim, and then you're just like, and you're plugging in like, oh, what would happen if, you know, if I change the board texture of this, or what would happen if I change the board texture of that? But if you don't have that curiosity, you're just going to look at that hand and you're like, okay, that's cool, and then you'll just move on to the next one in a very passive kind of way. But if you really, really want to make it to the top, and this is not just poker, any industry, you really need to, you know, cultivate that curiosity where you're so curious about what you're learning. And if you don't have it, you can like almost like force it, I guess, like at first, to just kind of like just like, okay, let me check this, let me check that, let me look at this, let me see if I switch this around. But what if my opponent was doing this? Then what would I do? Then, you know, like, it's like you almost ask yourself these questions that help you dig deeper into what you're learning. And I think that's a really efficient way of learning and becoming great. Third pillar, it's just the pillars of success, right? Just in general. You're not talking about poker. You're just like,
to
or you
become
are
a poker, successful poker player, I would say. But you can switch it up.
Yeah, so the first two, yeah, those are very poker based. I would say it's having either a great coaches or a very good mentor in your career. Because for me, like, I would have never been where I'm at right now if it wasn't for, you know, a guy named Helio, where he mentored me, and he's the one that like showed belief in me. He's like, you could do this, like, and I didn't want to move to Canada when Black Friday happened. I was like very hesitant about that. You know, I was playing a lot lower stakes at that time. Team 651 didn't exist. None of this ever existed until this guy basically inspired me in such a way that, you know, when I met him, he was just like, man, you have to come out here. You have to, like, this is an opportunity of a lifetime. Trust me. And like, he was just talking me into it. He's like, you're a great poker player. This at a time where I had like lower self-confidence in my poker game and stuff. And he was like, dude, you could do it. You know, he showed the belief in me when, even in times where I didn't even, you know, believe in myself. So I think those kind of things go a really, really long way. So if you have like a really solid mentor or some good coaches, and this is poker or anything, I think that will really help you get to the top for sure. Because a lot of us, like, you know, we try to do it on our own too much, and like it just takes longer that way. Like you can't, you know, you can't cut the I mean, like, you could cut the learning curve, you know, you could cut it. Like, there's a guy I watch, he always talks about, like, he's like, why would you make why would you make mistakes if you can learn from someone that's already made those mistakes and then not make them, you know? So if you can do that, then yeah, I think anybody, if they're looking at this and they hear those three things and they actually do all those three, it's 100% guaranteed success. Like, there's like, I can't really see like not succeeding under those circumstances. Like, if you actually have all those three things.
Yeah, for the last one, I definitely agree, because I was stubborn and I kind of wanted to be like a self-made or whatever. I don't know how I imagined it.
That's an ego thing. I used to think that way too. It's like, if that's the ego, that's just kind of like, I want to do it myself. Like, I don't need anybody's help kind of thing. And like, and then as we get older, we kind of learn, like, you know what, like, it's totally okay to ask for help. It's totally like, it's good. Like, everything we know is something we've learned from other people,
Yeah,
basically.
Exactly.
Every single thing that's ever came out of my mouth is something I've seen, or something I've read out of a book, or something I watched on a YouTube video. Like, just like, I've learned that from other people. Like, everything we do is basically based on that, you know?
Yeah, yeah. All right. Next question is about Team 651. Who and
Hmm.
how came up with the idea and the name?
That's a good one. That's funny. So we were living in a, I think you might know the story a little bit. We were living in a building. It was me and Jason. We were roommates, and we had a friend named Alex. A lot of people that are watching this probably don't know this part of the story. Um, so there was a friend of ours. His name was Alex, who was one of the original owners of Team 651. Actually, like almost, I would say like 90% of the 651ers probably don't know that. Um, and he would always come over, and we would always hang out. And so Alex and Jason had a couple of players that they staked on their own, like very low stakes players. And at that time, like Jason was telling me about staking, and I was like, I don't know about that. Like, how can you trust people that you've never met to send money back and forth? This was like 8 years ago. I was like, I'm not so sure about that. And they're like, yeah, no, it's like these people are like, there's a reputable thing, like 2 plus 2, like people are not going to jeopardize reputations, this and that. And then I don't know if we were drunk one night, but we were in the apartment and we were just hanging out, and we were just like, why don't we just like come together and build a team, like and stake players. Like, why don't we do that? Like, what's holding us back from doing that? And this was just like a random, like, spur of the moment conversation we had, and and then Jason and Alex were like, yeah, we should do that, and then we can put these players in the team, and like we're like, oh, but what would we call it? And and our building number was 651. So we were like, dude, we should just call it Team 651. We must have been drunk to come up with that. So we're like 651. That has to be it. That was like the building we lived in like 7 or 8 years ago. We're like, this has to be it. Like Team 651. It makes sense. And then we just decided right then and there, like, okay, Alex will take 40%, I'll take 40%, and then Jason will be the manager and he'll take 20%. That's what we decided on. That was the way we were going, starting from absolutely nothing, and we're just like, we'll figure it out. We'll do this. This is perfect. But then we thought it was like easy money at that time. Like for us, like staking was like, oh, everyone wins at poker. Like this is gonna be super easy. We'll just send money and the money will come back, easy peasy. But obviously, things are not that simple. And it didn't work out well. And then like we realized that we have to, because when we started, we didn't even do any coaching. It was just pure financial backing. We didn't do any coaching. There's no video. There's nothing. Like none of this existed. No structure, no manager, no Rudy. Like none of this was alive. No Scott, not one coach we didn't have. So after a while, we were like, everyone's like everyone's like losing. Like what's going on? Like we gotta fix this. And like so I talked to Alex and I was like, dude, we need to start doing some coaching. Um, and at that time, both me and Alex were terrible business people. Like we didn't even understand people, to be honest. At that time, we were just young and immature. I think is the way to really put it, lightly. Um, and I was like, dude, I think we need to switch it up. We need to start doing some coaching. He's like, oh, I didn't sign up for this. I wanted to just be a financial backer, this and that. And then we got into like a little, altercation, and we had some troubles. And then like a few months later, we agreed I would buy him out, and so I bought him out, and then we moved forward from there. And that's like, and then when I started reading books is when everything changed. When I started understanding people better, when I started understanding emotions better, when I started understanding like even how to socialize better, how to run a business better, and like all these things. And then we started putting, the pieces into place, and we started realizing, this backing thing is not, it's not as easy as we originally thought, to be fair. And it takes a lot of hard work. It's difficult. It's a difficult business for sure. Like, and we learned the hard way because we had a lot of rough, very, very rough years for sure.
Yeah, I can imagine that. I had to deal with some similar stuff in my life as well. So I can imagine. What
Yeah.
does 651 personally mean to you?
651 is like it's like my family, man. Like I said, when we first started it, it was a very shallow, like let's just make a quick buck. That's how it first started, right? Let's just make a quick buck. This is how we do it. like we didn't like even I didn't even know any of the guys on the team and stuff. And then like I started building relationships with everyone on Team 651. You know, I started connecting more with the people, and like it's literally like a family to me now. You know, like I remember my ex-girlfriend, like sometimes she would like say something about Team 651. I was always like, just be careful what you say, you know, like because like it's very near and dear to me these days because like there's so many people that I've been talking to for like even like some guys been here for like 6, 7, 8 years, and like they're literally like family, and like a lot of not a lot, but like I would say like at least, you know, 20, 30, 40 of the guys you've met in real life. And like it's just so good to just connect in that way with people that you've been like I've been talking to this guy for 5 years, and like, oh, now we're meeting, like this is cool, you know. um, so yeah, that's it's just family. That's probably the best way I would put it. Like it's just like it's my heart and soul. That's like it's my baby. Like I'm telling Scott and Jason, like if somebody was to come and be like, listen, Jack, I'll give you $20 million to buy Team 651, I would say no. I would just say no because like it's not like it's just not for sale. You know, it's like not something you can sell. You know, like you can't sell family. Like you just can't. Like if somebody comes to you, oh, I'll buy your dog for this amount, or I'll buy your mom. You're like, no, no, it just can't. You know, so it's not like it started like in a money kind of way, but then it's shifted into like, yeah, like more of like a family kind of thing.
Yeah, I think the more family it became, the more successful it became, right?
Yeah, yeah, and like that it kind of rode like that when we started making emotional connections with all the players. We started, you know, doing everything we can to help them succeed, whether it be coaching or mentoring, giving advice whenever needed, whatever it may be. You know, we don't want to just be like a staking team. We want to be like we want to be mentors too, and uh, lifestyle coaches, whatever it is. Like that's why we do like the podcast with Scotty, and like, you know, like I don't want people just to like come to Team 651 just to be good at poker. I want them to be just better humans too, like at life. You know, hopefully I inspire them to read more, maybe some people, or like just to open their mind to more self-development type of things, Alan Watts type of stuff. And that's like the main goal. Yeah. Just to better everyone's life.
That's a really good goal, in my
Yeah,
opinion.
because like I realized that like the best moments for me in Team 651 has been like in the past where people just like, you know, Jack, like you changed my life, like you made me do this, do that, and like those things mean more to me than like anything. When someone is like saying something like that, I'm like, oh wow, like, you know, because sometimes you don't realize like you're making a difference until someone's like, oh, you are. You're like, oh shit, okay, you know, thanks. And like, yeah, so like those little things, like, you know, they keep me going too. So it's just been a fun ride, and I love doing it. I mean, like there are days where I'm tired and maybe I don't feel like coaching or whatever it may be. Like I'm not like a robot where I'm just like always thrilled, and you know, it's like family. You're like, you
Yeah.
know, you're not like loving it every single day. You might have some rough patches and stuff, but then like at the end of the day, like it's what I want to be doing for sure.
Yeah, and it is exactly like family. Family don't want you to fake things. They want to see
Yeah,
you real. And
yeah, for sure. Yeah, so it's stuff it's stuff like that.
yeah, since you've been staking people for many years now, like how long it's now?
I want to say 7 or 8 years,
Okay,
something like that.
that is a
Let's
pretty.
say 8 years. Yeah, something like that.
What is the craziest or worst or best story from staking business?
Worst and best.
Yeah.
The worst one, the first thing that pops to mind is a player. He was a great guy, you know, a wonderful guy, but he just could not make it in poker. It just wasn't anything we did for him. It just nothing worked because there's some people that we realize, you know, with staking where no matter what you throw at them, like it just doesn't stick. Like I can't really explain it. It just doesn't. And like we tried so much with this guy because like he showed us like so much passion, and like we gave him like every one-on-one coach possible. We gave him a lot of one-on-one attention, mental game coach, like everything A to Z. And it just never worked. I don't know if it was a mindset thing, but like this guy basically, The reason why it's the worst is this guy. Um, we lost 250K on this guy. Like he was 250K in makeup, and he had to quit poker because he just couldn't win. And a lot of that 250K was like when we first started because we were like I said terrible businessmen. So we had this guy playing games where it was just like way too high. It's like a guy that probably should be playing, let's say, like $15 games was playing like $300 games, $500, even $1,000 games. So we had him like we were just like sending him money, like, yeah, do it, go do whatever you want, yeah. And so it ended up pretty bad. But the funny thing is, like, we still have a good relationship with this guy. Like, not like we don't actually talk to him this day. We parted ways like 4 or 5 years ago. But it's like if I saw him, it would be totally fine. That's the thing with backing is like sometimes you got to eat losses, and we understand that. And we understand that like the losses we ate with him, like a lot of it was our fault. To be fair, putting him in games that he should have never been in, and we were just terrible, managing that. And so that was partially it. But he was a good guy. Like he meant well, and like he was trying to do well, but it just never worked out. So that was probably the worst. Um, as far as the best, oh, I know what the best was. So there was a player we had. His name was Grammy, and so he spun a jackpot for 600K on stars. And when he spun the jackpot, Jason called me on Skype, and Scott was on the Skype call. I guess we are all around at the same time, which is already like kind of hard to do. So we got on the Skype call. We were watching the game live. So we're watching this game, and we're like, "Oh my God, he's got to win this!" And this is a guy that he lives in Thailand. So like, I mean, this jackpot is huge, right? I mean, like to anywhere it's huge. I mean, 600K, that's insane. So he's playing this game, and he gets heads up, and and then like he goes disconnect, and we are losing our minds on call. Like he's disconnected. We're watching him, and he's disconnected. We're like, oh my God, what the hell is going on? We are so freaking out at this point. We're like, how is this guy disconnecting at this time? This is such a bad run. And then he eventually comes back. I don't know if he folded out any hands actually. Maybe he might have folded one hand from the disconnect, but not more than that. Like he wasn't sitting out; it was just a disconnect. So he disconnected. I think he folded one hand, maybe not. Maybe it was like zero hands. He disconnected for like 8 seconds, and he came back, whatever it was. And then we got it in pocket twos versus, if I remember right, it was versus ace 10. I think the flop was like 10, 7, 4. And a 2 came on the turn of the river, and we yelled like nothing you've ever heard. We're like, ah, we're like screaming, yelling. Oh, it was incredible. It was like the best feeling I've probably ever had. Like when that 2 hit, and like because that was for it all. I think that finished it, or that gave him like a massive chip lead to the point where it was just all over from there. And he won the 600K jackpot, and it was just like it was such a great feeling, And this guy was just like he was such a good human. Like I was so happy that he won it. It was just perfect. Like everything about it was like out of a movie. Like if you made a movie about that, they'd be like, this can't happen. The guy goes disconnect, and then he binks the 2 on the turn of the river when he's almost dead. Like it's just like something that doesn't even seem real, but it actually happened, and like it was incredible. Yeah, that was the best for sure.
That's it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I never heard this story. I knew he won, but I never heard the story. Next question is, what is the most life-changing moment for you in your life?
For
Not
me,
poker career, but your life.
the first thing that comes to mind is moving to Canada because if I didn't move to Canada after Black Friday, I don't have any idea where I would be right now because I wouldn't be playing poker. What I like to say is like, so making that decision to move to Toronto from New York at that time was so huge because without that, there is, first of all, no Team 651. I'm not a high stakes poker player. I don't know what I'd be doing in New York. And I wouldn't have met all these people and had all these experiences that I had that helped me grow in life. You know, maybe I would have never got into self-development, Tony Robbins, books, and met all these people along the way. The people that, you know, Jason, Rudy, everyone from Team 651, when I lived in Costa Rica and Mexico, I would have met none of those people and maybe had none of those experiences if I didn't make that first risky kind of decision to move away from Queens, New York to Toronto, where I knew nobody, not one single human, to continue playing poker for a living at like 24 years old. And I thought that's something I would never do. But like I said before, that Helio guy, he's the one that kind of inspired me and gave me the belief that he's like, dude, you could do this. You know, because I was playing lower stakes at the time. I was like, dude, you could do this. You could move up. Like, I see it in you. He was like, I see it in you. Like, you have greatness in you. He's like, you have to make this move. And then I did, and like everything that's, you know, manifested in my life after that has been like helped me be who I am, you know, right now. Like if I was in New York, I honestly don't know if I would ever got into like spirituality, Alan Watts, reading books, self-development, met all these cool people, it's crazy, you know, places that I've lived, or any of these things. Like they just would have not existed. It would have been just like maybe me living in New York, working at a restaurant, maybe, I don't know. And like, I just don't know how different it would be. I just know it would be a lot, you know, different than my life is right now.
Yeah.
So that's definitely the most, yeah, that's definitely it.
Yeah, these big moves are hard to make, especially leaving home. I think it's one of the biggest ones.
It was very difficult for me, man. It was very difficult for me to make that decision.
Having mentor
And if
is
it
so
was really,
huge.
I'm not sure if I would. What's
Having
that?
a mentor inspiring you
Oh, it's
is
huge. Like I said, if it wasn't for him, I'm not sure if I would have done it. I really am not sure if I would have done it, you know? It's like sometimes you just need someone to just tell you, like, hey, man, like, you can do this. Like, I believe in you. Like, I see it in you. You know, you can do this kind of thing. And sometimes that's all you really need to just kind of take that next
yeah.
that next step.
I'm a huge believer
So
in
it's really,
mentors as well.
yeah, 100%.
All right, and yeah, that kind of leads to your YouTube channel, and other people can see the game of life. What did that mean
Yeah.
mean to you? I guess it's
The
something
game
in
of life.
lines to be a mentor or inspire people.
The game of life. Like, what does a channel mean to me? It's kind of like my outlet of um, just helping people, you know, because when I was younger, when I was in my young 20s, I want to say, I had a rough time with, you know, depression and anxiety and like a lot of different things that I wish I would have had all the answers to. And the answers were probably out there. I just wasn't really looking for them at that time. And now I want to make that accessible to everyone. Like all the lessons that I've learned, you know, all the most important things that I've learned, you know, in my journey, um, I want to share it with other people so they can hopefully, you know, better their own lives by watching that. So it's really important for me on that front. It's also important for me for myself as well because, like I say it on the channel a lot. Like I'm also, you know, when I'm coaching other people in a lot of these different, you know, whether it be mindset or poker, I'm also in a way like learning myself. Like I'm coaching myself as well because when you teach something, you internalize it more, and that's a concept I learned from a book about learning, and it says like the best way to really learn something really well is to teach it, because once you start teaching it, it becomes a part of your soul, because now you're saying it out loud and your subconscious hearing it, you're thinking it, you're becoming it. Um, so whatever I know, whatever I teach is going to be more engraved like into me as well. So it's helping me, it's helping other people. So it's just like a win-win, just a win-win all around. So that's basically what that channel means to me.
How did you came up with the name?
The game of life.
Game of life.
It was there's actually a funny story behind that. I actually didn't even mention it. Well, actually, I don't know if I mentioned that video that I made, but um, so there was this girl that I met in Mexico, and I spent the night with this girl, and we were having a conversation, and she was like, she just brought up something that I thought was like really just out there. She was just like, what character are you choosing to play in life? And I looked at her and was like, what are you talking about? You know, like I was so confused. And this was before I got into like reading books and spirituality. This was like, I want to say this was like a good like 8 years ago, 7 years ago, at least, maybe more, 8, 9 years. And I was just like looking at her like she was crazy. I was like, what do you mean? What character am I choosing to play? She was like, well, you know, she's like, life is like a game, you know, like you can show up and be whoever you want. Like if you want to be this person, you can be that. If you want to be this person, you can be that. And like I was just thinking, like, you know, that stuck with me. That conversation always stuck with me. And I didn't understand it at that time. But then like it resurfaced again, like when I started reading a lot of books and like started, meditating and like doing things like that. And I was like, maybe she was right, you know, like you could, like tomorrow, if you really, really, really wanted to, tomorrow, next week, you can show up as a totally different person. It wouldn't feel congruent to who you feel you are or who you believe you are because you've been like this your whole life. But if you really, really wanted to, you could change that. It will be very uncomfortable and like it will be incongruent at first. But you can show up as like a totally different person, like which is like a really weird thing to think about. But none of us want to do that because we're so attached to our identity and we're so attached to who we are. We're like, oh, this is who I am, and like this is what I know, that we don't want to, you know, make that change and like maybe become like a different kind of character. But just knowing that it's possible is just very intriguing to me.
Yeah, we
just
touched
knowing
this
that.
one. We touched this one with Alan Watts. He has a quote about that, but like you have no obligation to be the same person you were 5 minutes ago.
Yeah, I mean, there's no obligation, but like we feel obliged though. We feel obliged. There's a guy I follow on YouTube. His name is Dan Locke, and he talks about the most powerful force is who we believe we are. Like if you like, the power of belief goes so much deeper than I think we even know. And even people that know the power of belief goes deep, they don't even understand how deep the power of belief goes. Like it's just so far beyond our grasp. Like if you have like a very strong belief about something, that can change your entire reality. You know, like it'll distort your perception. Like everything changes. You know, everything changes. Like for example, like I'm a big believer in that. Like your beliefs drive your actions. You know, like for example, you know, 3 or 4 years ago, the poker game started drying out, and there were some people that had a strong belief that you cannot survive anymore in the poker world if you don't have a bot. This was a very strong belief, strong enough that they needed to get a bot, and it ruined their entire poker career. You know, and like having that belief is just so detrimental that this game cannot survive unless you have a bot. And like it did survive. For the people that believe that this game is going to survive long term, they were rewarded. And then these people that believe that you can't survive in this game unless you have assistance, unless you have a bot to work with, these people got banned and they're finished with now. So your beliefs drive your actions, and you got to be careful, you know, what you believe in. Like that's the thing. Like I try to like audit myself sometimes when I'm believing in things. I try to believe in things that are only gonna, you know, empower me or like be positive. And if I catch myself like having like a belief that I think could be questionable, I'll just try to pull it out if I can. But it's, you know, easier said than done, you know.
Yeah, it's a good thing with beliefs that search for like exact opposite. If you want to crush your belief, search for exact opposite, and you will at least shake it a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like that's I always like to do that. You know, if I believe something really strongly, especially if it's a bad thing. If it's a bad thing, if I believe something really strongly, I'm like, wait, what if I believe the other end of it? Is there any evidence that says that this end of it could be true? Not that it has to be true, but maybe there's something on this end that could have some truth to it, you know, and like it'll, you know, it's like a battle of your own mind, and like your perception's over here, and you're like, wait, maybe I should bring it a little bit over here. So that's one of the biggest probably life lessons for me, is like understanding the power of perception, you know, because how we see things is everything. You know, that's basically everything. You know, you walk across someone and like, you know, at a Tony Robbins seminar, I was there, and like this guy on a wheelchair with no legs is like smiling from ear to ear, and then like you'll see like, you know, so one guy is no legs and he's on a wheelchair and he's happier than someone that's like, you know, a tall, good-looking guy that has everything in his life in order, and like everything seems fine, but then this guy is happier than this guy, and then you're thinking like, how can this be? You know, and it's the perception is the only answer. This guy is focusing on all the positive things in his life. He's like, oh, I'm still breathing, I'm still living, I can still, you know, hang out with my family, watch TV, whatever. And this guy's thinking, I don't have enough. I should, you know, have more money, I should have more friends, I should have more of this. So he's very focused on the things that are lacking in his life. And this guy is just focused on the things that, you know, he's grateful for in his life. And once you switch that focus, you know, you consciously do that, you know, when you're feeling bad, you're just like, wait a second, like, you know, I should, you know, there's a lot of things in my life I could be grateful for right now if I really wanted to. Not tomorrow, not next week, you know, right now, that I can be, you know, grateful for, that I tend to overlook. You know, like that's what we do as humans. We tend to overlook all those things that are in our lives that are wonderful, you know, all these great things, and we just simply overlook them because we're focusing on the lack, you know, whatever we're lacking at that point in our lives or whatever. So it's just so easy to do that. So it'd be like a superpower to always keep yourself in like a perspective of like gratitude, you know. That would be probably one of the best superpowers to have. Where it's just like you always know and understand what you have in your life right now is just amazing. And you don't give enough credit or think about it enough, or, you know, appreciate it as much as you actually could.
Yeah. My next question is actually in lines with this one. What brings the most joy in your life now?
Brings the most joy. The first, I mean, it just keeps popping in my head. The first thing is just like inspiring other people to be the best version of themselves, because like that's my life purpose. I figured it out, you know, when I went to the Date with Destiny, is to be the strongest version of myself, to do everything in my power to be the strongest version of myself, and to then inspire others to do the exact same, to reach their absolute full, you know, maximum potential. You know, like when we look at ourselves, we're always like striving to be the best version of our, on every aspect, spiritually, health, family, you know, relationships, finances, whatever it may be. Like you just want to be like 10 out of 10 in everything if you can, and whatever that 10 out of 10 is for you.
Yeah, that's nice. I was like considering, do I want to ask this question, but I know I have to ask this one. It's not that scary. It's a very simple one. What's the backstory behind a black label,
Well, the black.
whiskey, and a cigarette?
That's a good question. That's a good question.
I'm over here drinking my black label, smoking the cigarette inside the house because I don't give a fuck. This is a message to all you shot takers at 500's cartel. We're gonna crush everybody. It's just not even close. Don't even try. You're wasting your fucking time. That's it.
That's a really good question. So at that time, I want to say that was like also like 8 years ago or something. That's around the same time where I was telling you had that conversation with the girl about the game of life, or the characters or whatever. So around that time, I was hammered during that video, absolutely hammered. So So basically, what happened was we were going out that night. It was me, my brother, uh, Jason, our friend Johnny, a few other poker guys. It was just like a good night. We were just like in Mexico, no cares in the world. We're just gonna go out and just have a great time. And there was a guy that was playing me a lot during that period, and it was kind of geared towards him. Um, So there was one guy that was like kind of playing me a lot, and we were going through like a battling and like this and that, and so it was basically geared towards him. I didn't want to say his name on the. I didn't know it was going to be posted on YouTube at that time either. It was just like a fun video, like somebody put the cell phone on me. So it was like just like a fun video um, and I was like, I must have been like, God, I must have been like 8 or 10 whiskeys deep at this point, just like absolutely hammered. And like I forget who put the camera on me. Jason was like, "Hey Jason," Jason was like, "Oh, send a message to, uh, you know, send a message to to this guy that's been playing you or whatever." Um, and then like immediately being like drunk, I was like, "Yeah, I'm gonna do that." And so that's what came out. And then like I hadn't actually smoked a cigarette. I've actually never smoked a cigarette in my life. It was just like a non-lit cigarette that I put in my mouth in that video, just for the video, and then just to like act like a cartel member or something. That's how I figured that cartel member would be. I was like, he's gonna be smoking, like drinking whiskey, smoking a cigarette inside the house. So that's what I did. I was like, yeah, it was just like a spur of the moment thing. It wasn't planned or anything. It was just like, yeah, like put the camera on, like, and then we had a good time. I, we had lots of good times in Mexico and like Costa Rica. I miss those places sometimes, having roommates and like sometimes being young and like going out, no cares in the world. Like I definitely miss those days sometimes. Like I feel like I'm just older now and I don't do as much of that, anymore. Or maybe during COVID, it's just not been doing anything. So it's like makes you miss like those social gatherings and like just connecting with people and just drinking, having a good time. Drinking or not drinking, it doesn't matter. Just connecting with people just in general. Because like during like after COVID, like the social life has been like very close to zero since like everything's locked down and stuff.
Yeah, socializing is something that we as humans have done forever, and
Yeah.
we need that. I think we can't
It's
live
so
without.
important. It's so important. Like I was saying, this COVID made me realize, how important it is. And like when I was reading Ray Dalio's book, he was talking about it too. Ray Dalio's like a billionaire, and he's just like meaningful relationships are better than any of this money. It just doesn't really, matter at the end of the day. And he was just talking about, he's like, that's, what brings him the most joy is having like just strong, meaningful social life, like relationships with people and like connecting. And these are the things that make him happy. And like the money is just like a game, it's just like a game he plays or whatever. So I thought that was kind of interesting.
What
But
keeps
yeah,
you
I've heard,
motivated?
huh?
What keeps you motivated to play?
Um, I I just want to build a future for, myself, my family, my future family, just a life full of freedom. Freedom is my motivation, I would say, at the core. It's freedom. Like I see it as like if I make like a boatload of money, the more money I make, I see it as like a freedom scale. The more freedom I have, because the more money you make, then the more you can shovel into investments, and then the more you shovel into investments like the stock market and things like that, you make passive income, and then later on in life, you can focus more on the things that actually really deeply matter to you. Your family, your relationships. You can focus more on social life and do what you want. The one thing I don't want to do is be a 55 or 60-year-old guy and be working somewhere because I absolutely have to put food on the table. So like I'd be burning like 10 hours of my life every single day doing something I don't want to do. And like, but that's like another end of the straw is that I don't ever plan or want to retire. I think like with that kind of mindset, like it changes everything. If you're working because you want to, and then you can like take days off if you want, you can take weeks off if you want, you can do whatever you want. Whereas opposed to you're working because you absolutely have to, and if you don't, Your kids are not going to eat. You're going to starve, and it's just not going to work. You know, and the freedom to have choices. To live where you want to live, to vacation where you want to vacation, to help out your family and friends if need be. And that's basically my motivation. Like that's something that's always with me. Like I want to create like a very strong life of freedom. And when I say freedom, I don't mean like a life of where I retire at 40 or 50 or whatever it may be. Because like for me, in my mind, I wanna be doing something like all the way through, like just until like my brain is just like, unless I have like some serious health issues. I was reading this book called Psycho-Cybernetics. That was my first goal. Like when I first started, when I was telling you when I first started Team 61, I was more of like, I'm gonna make X amount of money, then I'm just gonna quit and retire early and like do this. But then like I quickly changed my viewpoints on everything. The more I understood and the more I read, and this book Psycho-Cybernetics, it talks about when you retire, like when people retire at 65 and they don't have anything to do or anything that inspires them or anything that they're striving towards, their soul begins to die. Like you begin to, it's just like as humans, like we're just meant to just do something, like something meaningful. And if you're not, and if you retire, like your soul begins to die. And like he was saying, like that people die faster when they retire from working.
Yeah.
And when they have nothing, they just die faster because they get depressed and they get diseases and like things happen. But if you're still like 65, 70, and you're still kind of staying active, you're still reading, you're still engaging, you're still maybe, doing something business related, like, you can do part-time, whatever it may be. Like I don't plan on, well, the one thing is I don't plan on working like 80 hours a week for the rest of my life, which is something I've done for like 10 years. Like when I'm older, like I want to shift that. That's where the freedom comes in, where I want to work like maybe 25 or 30 hours doing something very meaningful, and then having that freedom to do whatever it is that I want, with the extra time.
Yeah, I read somewhere as well that after retiring in next 2-3 years, the health drastically goes down because
Yeah.
of, like, yeah, and I can see that in my own family as well. Like my father recently retired, and I saw how it is that you lose a meaning, like you don't know what to do, like
Yeah.
it's
That's the thing is like we as humans, we think that that's what we want, but then when we do that, that's when like everything goes down. There's two guys I follow on YouTube that had two exactly the same stories. The one guy, he says, I made my goal of making $1 million, and then I was like, after I make my goal, I'm just gonna lay on the beach and I'm just gonna watch movies. He's like, because I love those two things. He's like, I love them. He's like, but man, he's like, 1 month went by, I was on the beach. He's like, all I did was have sunburn, and I watched so many movies that I hate movies now. He's like, I'm disgusted by movies. I watched them all day and all night. And he's like, it didn't work. I thought that's what I wanted, but it was terrible. He's like, I'll never do it again. He's like, I'm not. He's like, now I understand. Like, there has to be in life something that you're striving towards, something, just something, like just something there that ignites you a little bit, even a little bit. There has to be something there. It can't be just like, I'm just gonna sit down and watch movies or Netflix for like 2 months. You can try, but you're gonna be depressed at the end of it. Like it's almost guaranteed. Try to sit down and just do nothing and watch Netflix and play video games for 2 months. You're gonna feel that lonely hole that's just gonna be there. It's just gonna be just nagging away at you. And I don't think there's any way to get rid of that. Yeah, so for me, like it's very important to just always be doing something. I don't ever like plan on retiring. Like I mean, the only way I retire is like if the doctors tell me like, listen, if you continue working, you're gonna die or something. You just can't. You're something health related. You just can't do it. But yeah, that's what I want to do. Because yeah, when I see people retiring, or like I see it on my dad too. He's not retired, but he kind of is. Like he works like once a week. He's just getting weaker. His body's getting weaker. His mind is getting weaker. I can see he's just like, he has spurts of happiness when he's watching something that gives him dopamine hits. But like overall, he's just, I don't even know if he's like, I would say he's probably happier if he's working and like doing something. instead of just sitting on the couch all day at home and like, doing a whole bunch of nothing.
Yeah, yeah, I agree, and that's right. Like, this is the first time I hear somebody else telling that they don't want to retire. That's
Oh
something
yeah,
I share as well.
but that's the first, like I said, like when I was in my young 20s, that was my number one goal. I was like, I'm gonna play so much poker, I'm gonna make so much money, I'm gonna retire when I'm 30. But then I was just like, now I'm just like, I'm never gonna retire. I can see myself just, like when you look at guys like Warren Buffett, like he still goes to the office and works at like 88 years old or whatever how old he is, and like, yeah, I want to still be, doing something business related or something that really inspires me all the way through as long as I humanly can.
That's pretty good one. Like, I agree on that one, and I think it's very important as well. But the next question is kind of like we got very future oriented. But the next one, since you don't know it, like it might surprise you. Next one is
Yeah.
if your story would end in 15 minutes,
hmm
what would be the title of it? And 1 to 3 sentence description.
Hmm. So from zero until now, my life.
Yeah, like your life ends in 15 minutes. It's done. But there should be some title like about it. What would be the title of it and 1 to 3 sentence description?
Oh, that's a good one. That's a good one. Let me think. I would say I would keep it very simple and I would call it the road to wealth. But when I say wealth, a lot of people, when they hear wealth, they think about just money. Wealth for me is like just an overall state of well-being, like just a very, um, it's like everything combined, like spirituality, relationships, money, freedom, just everything. So the road to wealth, that's what I would call it. Because I started, um, started with nothing, obviously, and I just figured out, like, I guess, like, my parents never taught me about, like, self-development and, like, spirituality and, like, all these things, like business, finances. Like, I just had to figure all this out myself. So I think if there was a story about it, that's probably along the lines of what I would title it. Yeah, that's what I would go with.
Yeah, like everyone tries to go for very catchy names since the first one. Like, first who came up with was Tom. I asked to Tom and he wasn't
Yeah.
prepared, and then Jonas came prepared, and like everyone after came prepared. But yeah, since I knew you don't know it, it's like
I'd rather not be prepared. I don't want to like, but yeah, that's the first thing that like whatever I'm answering to you is like the first thing that comes to mind. I
that's
didn't
good.
really
Yeah.
like if I can think more about it, maybe I would change it around a little bit. But I think the first one that instinctively comes up is probably the one that I think is most accurate.
Yeah, and
To
that's interesting to yourself as well, because afterwards you can think about it, like why actually did this came up to me, like why it's
yeah,
important
yeah,
to.
yeah, yeah. I mean, it came up for a reason, right? Like that's what comes up. That's definitely what comes up.
It's been amazing to talk to you. Like, we are at hour, and like that's a good target for me as well. And like,
Yeah.
the one thing I want to end with, like, that question is the last question, was the last question, and I tried
Hmm.
I try to give space for that one because it is kind of like you don't hear it every day.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. Yeah. No, I was thinking there for a second. Yeah.
and the last thing is like, what is your message to the team?
To the team,
Yeah,
just overall to the team.
yeah,
Um, I don't have like any specific message. Just like I would just say like just try to do good. Try to do good in the world. Like because it's just like a lot of times we get caught up in like our own kind of selfish needs, and we treat others with disrespect sometimes because of the way we're feeling or whatever it may be. Like I think if everyone just tries to do good deeds, like just do something generous for somebody else. Like that's something I heard. That's something I heard once from somebody. They were saying like, when everything is going bad for you, do something good for someone else. You know, and if everyone on Team 651 can do that, and everyone in the world can do that, you know, the world would be such a better place if we can all just do something good for someone else, not for us. You know, do something good for, you know, anybody in your life. And if we all can like trickle down and do something like that, I think that'll take us, you know, really far. Because, you know, including myself, a lot of times, like, you know, we as humans will have, you know, a lot of selfish thoughts. Obviously, we want to better ourselves and like do everything for ourselves. But sometimes, you know, doing something for other people can make you feel better than almost anything you can do for yourself, which is kind of interesting, I think. Like just doing something like just a really good, like I remember there's this guy I follow on YouTube, another guy. So he has like his own private jet. This guy's like mega wealthy, and he's got everything. He's like I had so many happy moments in my life, like buying my own private jet, I bought my house, you know, this and that. And he was like the best moment of my life was buying my parents a house. You know, just seeing how happy they were when he bought them that house and stuff. And he was just like, that meant more to me than like, you know, buying my parents a house, $1 million house meant more to him than like buying himself like $100 million jet, you know? So doing something for somebody else sometimes is very, very deeply satisfying if we can just get out of our own heads and like just, you know, do something like that. So if they're watching, that's a challenge I give to, you know, everyone on Team 651. Go do something for anybody. It doesn't matter who it is.
That's a great way to end this amazing conversation. Do something good for somebody else.
That's it. It's very simple, you know, just very simple. That's all you need.